With Congress still paralyzed and unable to pass any legislation, a floor vote was held this afternoon to elect a new House Speaker.
Republican Jim Jordan fell well shy of the 217 votes needed to take the gavel. Caroline Shively reports on what is next.
Jim Jordan is strategic, scrappy, tough, and principled. He is a mentor, a worker, and above all, he is a fighter.
Jim Jordan is within reach of becoming the next House Speaker, but his first attempt to secure the gavel on the House floor came up way short.
The Speaker has not been elected.
I still believe he can unite this conference.
Jordan must flip at least 20 Republican skeptics to win a majority of the full House.
Jim Jordan asked me to support him. We had a frank conversation on Sunday. I told him that I was with McCarthy. I've always told him I was with McCarthy.
How did it feel to lose the first round?
The longer this drags on, the worse it could get for Mr. Jordan. With no speaker for the past 2 weeks, the House hasn't done any work, like passing bills or getting emergency aid to Israel. While Democrats have been pushing for the House to get back to business, they are less than thrilled about a potential Speaker Jordan.
A vote today to make the architect of a nationwide abortion ban, a vocal election denier, and an insurrection insider to the Speaker of this House would be a terrible message.
They view the House Judiciary Chair as a Trump-supporting extremist, and Democrats are totally united, again nominating Hakeem Jeffries to lead the chamber.
He is also the candidate with the most credibility.
The last time the House went this long without a speaker was over 100 years ago. In Washington, Caroline Shively, Fox 32, Chicago.
And Jim Jordan's office insists that a second-round ballot vote will take place. And we want to bring in Fox 32 political analyst, Professor Stephen Caliendo, now from North Central College.
Professor, thanks so much for joining us. Okay, so if Jordan loses by even more votes in the second round, the third round, the fourth round, is that it for his chances to become Speaker?
It ought to be, although he hasn't won at all yet. I mean, there was a closed-door vote last week with Republicans only, and Steve Scalise emerged as having more votes than Jim Jordan, so he didn't even win that. He said at that time that he wasn't going to go to the floor unless he knew he had the 217 votes he needed. He reversed course today, went to the floor anyway, and ended up losing more than I think he expected. And so with 20 Republicans voting the other way, he needs 17 of them to come over, and I don't know how much he can be working the phones to make that happen for the rest of the afternoon.
Yeah, what do you feel like the likelihood of changing the minds of 17 people is?
It's pretty small, Anthony. Some of those 17 people, these votes are really complicated, right? I mean, they're, from my perspective and yours, you might think you just vote for who you like. You might vote for who you want to lead the Congress, who you want to lead your conference. But it's more than that. There's more than a dozen Republican House members that represent districts that Joe Biden won in 2020 and may win again in 2024. And so they have to be careful about voting for somebody who is perceived as extreme. And so there may be some symbolic votes in those 20. There may be some votes for Jim Jordan that were reluctant votes for him. That may go the other way if this gets too long. And so I don't know who's whipping votes, but they're not doing a very good job this afternoon.
We the people want things to get moving here, and there is an option for that. There's some support to grant Speaker Pro Tem Patrick McHenry limited powers for 30 days to get Congress back on track. Is that a possibility?
That's absolutely a possibility, and it'll be really interesting to see what the Democrats do. Hakeem Jeffries was closer to being Speaker in this first vote this afternoon than Jim Jordan was, right? I mean, he was only 5 votes away, and the Democrats have been in lockstep with him. It would be a really interesting vote of unification if overwhelmingly members of the House, including Democrats, voted for a 30-day speaker just to be able to get things moving. Democrats did not help save Kevin McCarthy when they had an opportunity to a couple of weeks ago, and they've been pretty clear that they're not interested in bailing Republicans out of their own family squabbles. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, knowing that there has to be aid for Israel, aid for Ukraine on the horizon, as well as other business. I wouldn't be completely shocked to see the Democrats join the Republicans and have a 30-day speaker.
Let's say that Jim Jordan musters those votes, becomes the next speaker. He is the co-founder of the far-right Freedom Caucus. If he's elected speaker, what would that kind of dynamic, do you think, do to the House of Representatives with him in that position?
The concerns here, Anthony, from Republicans who have not been supportive of his candidacy are less about the Freedom Caucus, I don't think, in terms of policy preferences, as of Jordan's checkered past, and particularly his role being an election denier and maybe being partly responsible for what happened on January 6, 2021 with the insurrection. He has defied a subpoena from his own group, the House of Representatives. He defied a congressional subpoena to appear before the January 6th committee, and we're not clear exactly what his role is. So there's a real symbolic problem there that I think it's not just Democrats, but a lot of Republicans have a concern about. And so that, if he's the face of the party in Congress, certainly Donald Trump remains the face of the Republican Party in the United States. But if Jim Jordan becomes the face of the Republican Party in Congress, one wonders what those moderate Republicans where they have to go.
We've enjoyed our lesson today. Thanks so much, Professor Stephen Caliendo.